Hey everyone, my name's Chase. I dig up clay and I make some pots. Sometimes I make work that looks like this. Sometimes like this. Other times, looks like that. I don't know. Look at this teapot. Look at this teapot. Anyway, I got a commission to make some plates. So, let's go do that. So first thing I do when I get to the studio is I typically put in music. My go-to jams these days are Crywank, Single Mothers, Sorority Noise, and the old classic Modern Baseball. Then I'm going to get set up by pulling out some of these bats. I am going to be making plates, so I do know that I need the bats. And then I'm going to do a little test piece here, just to get the amount of clay right. I'm going with 3.5 pounds, I'm just kind of winging it. The plates are supposed to be 11 inches wide, I believe, with about an inch of table gap. So I'm going to clean off my wheel surface here. I am going to throw this test piece directly on the wheel head. It's something I typically don't do, especially for plates. There's no way to get it off. This is just me experimenting to try and figure out if this is the right amount of clay to make the commission. As you can see, I'm measuring to make sure it's right. Again, I was asked to make them about 11 inches, which is pretty wide, I find, for a plate. Plates are pretty basic. I just kind of squish it out, keep everything as flat as possible, flare out the rim, add a little decorative element. You can see I'm kind of playing with the rim a little bit. It is my test piece. I'm not too concerned about how it looks, but I am playing around with it. Again, just confirming the dimensions. I'm going to chop it off. Everything seemed right. I winged it with the right amount of clay. So I'm going to clean up my wheel surface. Clean up my hands. I'm going to wedge up the correct amount of clay that I need. I wedged up 8 balls. I like to make a couple extra, especially when I'm making commissions. Flip on my little wheel here. As you can see, my wheel is a little bit odd. It's got a sump pump motor, I believe, and the giant steel disc on the bottom. The motor engages with the steel disc and it spins the wheel head. It means I can use it as a kick wheel too if I want, but it does mean my feet have to be quite high up. That's why you see me riding it kind of the way that I am. Just means that the clay is going to splash me a lot, especially with the bat. Raises the clay up above that splash pan line. I just get covered in clay. It is what it is. So I get my bat centered. Again, plates are pretty straightforward. This is recycled clay, so it's a little bit on the softer side. But that's okay, makes plates pretty easy. Does make it that I have to dry them quite slow. So again, I'm just squishing it out with my hands, bringing it all close to me. Bringing it about 1/2 inch to the edge of my bat, which is the size that I determined would be the correct for the commission. Just double checking with the old tape measure. I do use these long ribs to kind of flatten everything out, and you will notice that I do throw these plates quite wet. With all my plates, I enjoy having them a little wet. I find the slip leaves, I don't know how to describe it, but nice marks behind for the glaze to interact with. I find they're thin enough that it doesn't matter. Your tools, not your tools, but your utensils, I guess, aren't gonna engage with them, rub on them, make weird noises and stuff. And since this is the first one that I'm making, I'm trying to kind of figure out how I want that rim to look. You'll see I get really close here and accidentally tear the clay. I do try and save it. Here I am with the sponge, doing everything I can. You can kind of see it like wobble there, trying to come in with the finger to fix it. Switch to the old silicone rib, but immediately it grabs in the corner, and I dug into it again, and the old classic slam the rib down. Whatever. Clay is infinitely recyclable, quotation marks. So I'm gonna just squish it up, put it into a little poop rainbow. I'll come back to use that another day. I'm gonna clean up this bat surface to get ready for the next one. You'll see here I just took off the bat. It's a little dirty, whatever. we'll switch to another one. If I'm being honest, the camera actually just died and I had to switch to a different shot here. This is a little later on. That's why my pants are a lot more dirty. One thing to keep in mind with this method of making plates, especially if we're trying to be consistent, that slab of clay that's underneath the bat, you'll notice that it gets smaller and smaller. So if you're the type of person who wants things to be extremely consistent and you're using pot guides, what that is typically just a stick that you would bring the clay out to, that it would touch for height and width. I just kind of wing it when I'm making commissions. I'm not the most consistent potter and don't really want to be. The issue you would run into with this method is that clay gets smaller and smaller and a little bit more wonky the more that I take the bats off. So if you did want to be more consistent, you'd hit it with a heat gun, make it leather hard, and be quite gentle with the way you're putting on the bats. Again, I'm not too concerned about it, I'm just kind of winging it, so it is what it is. So same process here. I'm going to just leave this go. Can't really comment on it. I could talk a little bit of philosophy on the plates, but I mean, plates are plates. Anyway, enjoy me throwing for a little bit. And once I'm done throwing, I'm going to clean up my wheel head. Again, if you were planning to make more things on a bat or more things consistent, you can leave the bat on, just kind of cover it. It is a thing some people do. I find it's easy enough to make those little clay beds that, I mean, you just make it every time. It's kind of satisfying. It usually makes a nice little flower shape and gets a little out of hand. You'll notice that my pants have gotten increasingly dirty. I don't wear an apron, but I should have on this one. My splash pan certainly is not high enough. As soon as there's a bat involved, you'll see me scrape off the goo. I'm not going to clean up my entire wheel. It's an antique and it's quite a pain to clean, so I just clean it probably once a week. Anyway, here's all the plates that I was left with. I ended up with 7. You saw me break that first one there. And then I'm going to cover them up with plastic. Again, they are quite wet, so I'm going to have to come back and trim them another day. But I'll save that for another video. I'm going to hit the light here. Call it a day. Thanks for hanging out. If you want to see some of my other work, here it is drawing. But I would recommend checking out my little shorts playlist. I think it's called Studio Daze, to see how I made some of that. Anyway, thanks everyone. On a side note, the tripod that I was using is broken. It's an antique from Japan, and I just shoved a trimming tool that I made in so that my camera wouldn't weigh it down. and flop over. Also, look how filthy this wheel is. It's absurd. I should clean it.